This video is sponsored by SimpliSafe. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. What if your family vacation suddenly turned into the most brutal death game that the world has ever seen? They're trapped on a live show where 4 brutal psychos are hunting them down for sport, and they get points for making every kill as gruesome as humanly possible. It's from the studio who brought us Terrifier 3, so you already know we're about to see some wild. We're about to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the game show of death in stream. This vacation is about to turn into a bloodbath. Late one night at the Pines Hotel, owner Linda here is trying to clean up before the guests arrive, but it looks like she's having trouble with the vacuum. Looking down, she notices the cut wire, and the maintenance guy blames it on the rats, but he promises to take care of them before the weekend. As soon as he's gone, the owner walks into the next room, when all of a sudden, she comes running back out and crashes straight through the glass table. Injured, there's nothing that she can do as a cloaked figure emerges from the shadows and takes her away, but this psychopath is just getting started. At home, Roy asks his high-tech whiz son Kevin for some help with his old camera, but he'd much rather be playing games up in his room. His older sister Taylor gets brought home by the cops for shoplifting some brewskis, and it's obvious that she doesn't care if she gets in any trouble, leaving him and his wife Elaine feeling like they can't get through to them. After talking it over, they decide to take a family trip to one of their favorite childhood spots, the Pines Hotel, but that was their biggest mistake. As for Linda, she's all beat up and tied to a chair in the maintenance room, terrified of whatever is going to happen next. That's when a man wearing a plague doctor mask slowly walks into the room and grabs a power drill from a shelf in the back, crouching down next to her before revving it up and putting it straight through the side of her skull. That makes 1 down with 19 more to go. Okay. Well, sorry Linda, but it looks like this hotel is under new management. First of all, take another look at that wire here. You're gonna tell me that rats did that shit? I'm sorry, but either we need to test the new guy and find out what he's been smoking, or he's setting you up. And either way, you gotta use your own judgment here and realize when you're being tricked. When he knocked her down, the most effective counterattack would have been to sweep his legs, either by kicking him or by using one of the broken table legs as an improvised weapon. Then we use his own weapon against him, or wire from the vacuum cleaner to take him down for good. Now, once she was caught in the chair, that made escaping a lot more difficult, but she wasn't completely screwed just yet. The first step here is getting your hands free from the rope, and the simplest way to start is by moving your wrists back and forth to check for any weakness. The more you sweat, the moisture will help loosen up the knot until eventually you should be able to get your hands out of there. If that's not working, we need to try and cut the rope using the sharp edges of the chair, or by hopping over and using a tool or other sharp object that we find here in the room. The last chance that she had to escape was right before he finally made the kill. When he crouched down next to her, that was her moment to blast him with a nasty headbutt, causing the chair to break as they both fell to the ground, and then whoop his ass with anything that she could find. As for the family, they're just looking for a quiet weekend getaway, but they have no idea that they're walking straight into their own graves. It's already after dark by the time the family gets to the hotel the next night. There's a newlywed couple horning it up in front of them, and while her parents are busy checking in, Taylor sneaks off to go talk with these 2 French guys sitting at the bar. It turns out they're going to a concert for one of her favorite bands, and the nice one introduces himself as Theo. At the front desk, the manager, Mr. Lockwood, explains that the internet has been down, but the parents don't mind as long as it keeps the kids off their devices. Elaine catches her daughter trying to sneak away from the bar, but instead of telling her to leave, she makes her sit back down so they can talk to her about bad habits. While they're having a heart-to-heart, the bartender keeps coming over and awkwardly hitting on her mom, but Taylor finally agrees to behave so that her dad won't be stressed out. Around back, this maintenance lady comes out to head home after another long shift. While she's putting her things in the car, she stops for a second to ponder the meaning of life, but that's when she notices a weird-looking guy jumping around under a tree, and when she looks closer, she realizes that he's tying up a noose. Suddenly, this dude spins around and looks the woman dead in the eye, pointing and laughing at her when he sees that she's afraid. She tries going for the car when he starts sprinting towards her, only to discover that she's already been locked out. Looking back, it seems like the man is gone, but when she leans closer to the window, someone violently kicks the door open from the inside. As she tries to crawl away, the shadow of a woman with long pigtails playfully walks towards her to claim another victim, and that makes 2 down with 18 more to go. At the front desk, Lockwood here is surprised when an older maintenance worker shows up. He's looking for the real owner, and the receptionist tells him that she's back in the storage room, but as soon as they get there, he absolutely blasts the guy in the back of the head with a fire extinguisher, knocking him out cold. Heading to their room, Kevin notices a worker putting up a security camera. It's wireless, which means that this place has Wi-Fi after all, but the worker tells him that it's only for the staff. Just then, this random drunk guy, Howard, stumbles right into the ladder, causing the maintenance guy to fall flat on his ass, but after a quick rant, he wanders off to die another day. The family gets to their room a few minutes later, and now it's time for the death game to begin. Paying off the camera guy, Lockwood here activates a security panel to remotely lock down the entire building, leaving the other guests with no way to escape. At the arcade, the bartender Mark is getting a little too into it while playing one of the games until he notices someone watching him from the doorway. Without taking his eyes off the screen, he tells the guy to get lost, saying that the arcade is closed. But what he doesn't realize is that this guy is dressed like he's going out for the purge. The man eventually disappears, but then a second later, this enormous bodybuilder wearing a black skull mask grabs him from behind and starts slamming his face against the buttons, jamming his eyeball directly onto the joystick before throwing him down onto the floor. This is player 4, and reaching into his bag, he pulls out a pair of clippers that he uses to brutally slice off the man's nose before finally taking a hammer and pulverizing his skull. Muscle Man grabs his beer and pours one out for the dead homies, making 3 down with 17 more to go.
Okay, holy man. I know this hotel's a bit of an eyesore, but damn. So far, these workers here are dropping like flies, and I've got a feeling that it won't be long before the guests are up next. Let's start with the housekeeper who met the killers first. This lady's first mistake happened before she even clocked in for her shift, when she chose to leave her car by the sketchy-ass loading dock, instead of the well-lit parking lot around front. You might not be expecting any trouble, but by parking back here where there were no witnesses, she left herself vulnerable to being attacked. When you see a random guy in the back alley doing Art the Clown impressions, you don't just stand there enjoying the show. As soon as you see something like that, you need to get in the car and peel the hell out of there before he gets any closer. Now, I get that it's late and she just came off of a long shift, but you have to be awake enough to notice someone taking your keys and closing the door literally 1 foot behind you. Hopefully the killers don't have keys to the back door, and that would hold them off while she made her escape. And then we have Mark, the annoying bartender, who ran into the most intimidating guy yet. Player 4 here is an absolute unit, so the strategy for fighting him is going to be a little bit different than fighting everybody else. He's too big to try and fight one-on-one, which means that getting away is what we're looking to do. As soon as he saw his reflection on the screen, Mark needed to spin around and whip the beer can directly into his face. That should throw him off enough for you to dodge his first grapple move. And then while he's recovering, you grab the wrench or hammer from the tool bag in case you have to defend yourself. But we're definitely not sticking around to fight. Instead, we need to use the games and other objects in the room to avoid him like running away from Chris Walker in Outlast. And then just keep running around until you get to your car and escape, or find a place to hide while you decide what to do next. Alright you guys, we cover a lot of spooky topics on this channel, but nothing is spookier than worrying about someone getting all up in your stuff. That's why I'm so excited to talk to you about SimpliSafe Home Security. They're offering you, my awesome How to Beat Minions and Meat Shields out there, an incredible deal, a whopping 60% off a brand new SimpliSafe system. With the holidays coming up, it's a time when you want to feel extra secure knowing your loved ones and belongings are safe. For me, that peace of mind is basically priceless. I mean, seriously, look at this collection. Ain't no one getting at my precious treasure hoard. I've spent years of my life building up this collection, so obviously I've got to protect it. That's why I'm such a huge fan of SimpliSafe. They've just launched their brand new Active Guard outdoor protection system, and it's a game changer. Traditional alarms are great, but they only react after a break-in has already happened. SimpliSafe Active Guard stops would-be bad guys in their tracks before they even get inside. Their AI technology identifies suspicious activity and connects you with live monitoring agents who can talk directly to the intruder through your camera, activate loud sirens and spotlights, and even dispatch the police if necessary. Plus, SimpliSafe's smart technology differentiates between familiar faces like family or friends and potential threats, so you won't get annoyed with false alarms. The best part? SimpliSafe is completely hassle-free. With no long-term contracts, they have affordable monitoring plans that start at around $1 a day, and you can even install it yourself if you're feeling handy. SimpliSafe has been recognized as one of the best home security systems of 2024 by US News and World Report, and they've received top marks for customer service as well. Remember, I've partnered with SimpliSafe to offer you, my amazing viewers, an exclusive 60% discount on a brand new system. But this offer won't last forever, so don't miss out. Save 60% on your SimpliSafe security system when you sign up for a professional monitoring plan and get your first month free. Visit simplisafe.com/howtobeat to customize yours. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. And with that, let's get back to it.
While her parents are asleep, Taylor takes the opportunity to sneak up to the roof with one of the French guys she met at the bar. Over at the honeymoon suite, the newlyweds are busy getting it on in the jacuzzi when they realize that they are being watched. Terrified, the woman screams when she notices one of the skull-masked killers standing by the bed, but while they're distracted by her, Player 2 sneaks in and blasts the man in the side of the face with a bottle of champagne. Grabbing him by the hair, he holds the man back while Player 3 comes over and drags the woman out of the tub. There's nothing that she can do but watch as 2 holds the man's head underwater until he finally drowns, before grabbing a corkscrew and skipping across the room to deal with her next. At the last second, the woman leans back and kicks him in the chest, sending them all to the ground and opening up a chance for her to escape. As she runs for the door, she stops to stare at her husband's body, but 2 takes that corkscrew and jams it straight into her ankle. Horribly injured, the woman staggers out into the hallway screaming for help. But 2 catches up and drags her back into the room just as Roy comes around the corner, making 5 down with 15 more to go. Finding his wife and son awake, Roy here is furious to see that Taylor snuck out, and he takes Kevin with him to go find her. Meanwhile, his daughter's up on the roof making out with the French dude, still completely oblivious to what's going on back inside. There's no sign of anyone at the front desk, so the boys decide to take a look outside, only to discover that the entrance is locked up tight. It's strange, but they haven't realized they're in danger just yet, and Player 1 is quietly watching them from across the room. While Elaine's lying in bed, she's startled awake by a loud knock at the door. At first, she thinks that it must be her husband, but when she looks like the peephole, it looks like nobody's there. That's when Player 1 suddenly jumps into view, and she threatens to call the front desk, thinking that it's a prank, but everything changes when the man goes to the next door and lets himself into the connected room. Worried, the woman peeks inside, shutting the door when it looks like no one's there, but by then, it's already too late. So far, Roy isn't having any luck, but that's when this guy Dave offers to help. He says the French guys are in the room right next to his, but when he tried to step outside, he realized the door was locked. It looks like every door in the place is locked down, and he's getting a little suspicious that something might be wrong, but they have no idea just how crazy everything is about to get. Thinking that the coast is clear, Elaine sits down to read until all of a sudden, Player 1 lunges out from behind the chair, grabbing her by the neck. Fighting for her life, she takes a pen from a nearby desk and jabs him in the side of the face, creating an opportunity for her to get away. The woman fires off a couple glasses that blast this mofo straight in the head as she scrambles to escape, but before she can get very far, he pulls out a hunting knife and launches it directly into her spine. Too injured to run, she collapses to her knees as the killer wraps barbed wire around her neck. Turning around, he looks towards a hidden camera on the other side of the room, and that makes 6 down with 14 more to go.
Okay, man, I don't know what's worse for Roy here, the fact that his wife just got killed or that his daughter is running away with some French dude. But it only took 2 hours for this vacation to turn into an absolute disaster. Speaking of disasters, these 2 had plenty of time to react while the Harley Quinn reject over here was trying out her makeup. My man here could have at least looked 90 degrees to his right before he got absolutely blasted with a champagne bottle, but even after that, he still had a chance if he made the right decisions. When player 2 was forcing him under the water instead of focusing on his hands, there were two other choices that he could have made. Either grab a champagne glass and use it as a weapon, or pull him into the jacuzzi with you. That way, now you're both drowning, and you'll have a much better chance at coming out alive than if you let him completely control the situation. As for the girl, she pulled off a pretty impressive move when she managed to kick player 2 down and get free, but then immediately followed it up by just standing 2 feet away. Instead of waiting to get shanked in the ankle, grab a robe and a weapon on the way out the door, close it behind you to buy more time, and don't waste time knocking for help. Pull the fire alarm if you see one. Now, for Elaine, her death was easier to avoid because she saw the killer before he got into the room. The only problem was she didn't take it seriously. I'm sorry, but if I heard that other door open, I'm not thinking, oh, this must be a joke. I'm already entering fight or flight mode and deciding which direction to run for my life. Now, I have to give her credit. She did put up a pretty decent fight. But once he hit her with that throwing knife to the spine, it was all over. Her only hope here would have been to dodge the throw, but it just goes to show that sometimes you can do almost anything right and still wind up dead. And that's why the best way to survive would have been to use common sense and get out of there before the fight even started.
Up on the roof, Taylor eventually convinces the French dude to give her a concert ticket. He wants to sneak out without being seen, so they decide to climb down the fire escape instead of going back inside, and she has no idea that it's about to save her life. Meanwhile, back inside, Lockwood here gets frustrated that the maintenance guy keeps struggling to get loose, so he decides that it might be time to finish the job. He gives the man a chance to beg for his life first, but it's all just a part of his twisted game. And after turning on the camera, he grabs a horrifying spiral dagger out of the closet. Putting on a rain jacket Patrick Bateman style, he crouches down and stabs the guy once in the stomach before taking it back out and sticking it right through his lower jaw, and then finally piercing it straight through the side of his head, asking, "Can you hear me now?" as he twists the blade around. It's one of the wildest kills yet, and that makes 7 down with 13 more to go. But while he's distracted, Taylor and the French dude are able to get away unseen. Back at their room, Roy tells his son to wait outside when he notices signs of a struggle, and his worst fears come true when he finds his wife lying in a pool of her own blood. With no service to call for help, it seems like there's nothing he can do, but little do they know that Roy here is about to crash out. Out in the hall, he almost has to throw hands with Dave until the man reveals that he's actually a retired police officer. After filling him in on what happened, they take Kevin over to his room and tell him to hang tight while they go and look for his sister. It's time to lock and load, so before leaving, the man goes to his bag and gets the strap. And Roy warns this kid not to open the door unless he hears their secret lock. What they don't know is that Taylor here is already miles away, and that's when she starts to feel bad about sneaking out and tells the French guy that she wants to go back. Roy wants to warn the other guests, but the officer explains that they can't trust anyone. He's seen a case like this one before, where some people were all trapped in an apartment building and killed in all kinds of horrifying ways. Out by the pool, they happen to run into that drunk guy, Howard, and somehow he's even more wasted than before. That's when his wife comes out and starts shouting at him to be quiet. But they're all shocked when they hear Lockwood's voice coming over the intercom. As more of the guests come out to see what's happening, this man announces that they're all trapped in a death game, where every last one of them is going to be hunted down for sport. Now it's time to bring in the players, and suddenly the power goes out all around the building. Somebody screams, but by the time the lights come back on, the wife has already been barbed wired to the neck, and her alcoholic husband is pinned up to a lamppost with his guts spilling out and a metal spike piercing through his mouth. Turning around, the group sees 1 and 4 walking towards them, but Dave here hesitates to take a shot. He only starts blasting once it's already too late, and while 4 crushes this guy's skull with his bare hands, player 1 drags another victim screaming away by her hair, making 11 down with 9 more to go. 4 takes a pipe straight off the wall as he goes looking for someone else to brutalize, but during the chaos, Roy and the officer manage to hide behind the bar, waiting until he's gone before they make their next move.
Okay, these idiots just got massacred, and it's all because they have the collective survival instincts of a 3-toed sloth. There was plenty of time to run away if they had any sense of self-preservation, and personally, I'm not opposed to using someone slower than me as a meat shield if that's what it takes. Now, with that being said, they did outnumber the ops 2-1, and even though they're not the best fighters, there was still a chance they could win if they at least had a decent strategy. The key would have been to stick together and fall back to a more defensible position, like behind the bar or inside the shop that Howard just came out of. This would force the killers to come through the door, creating a choke point where Roy and the others could do some damage. It's also a deli, so you know there's bound to be sharp objects, tools, and cleaning supplies in there that they can use to defend themselves, and even some protein to distract the bodybuilder. With the help of Dave's pistol, they could have easily put these two in the ground, and then there would only be 2 killers left. But him hesitating to take a shot is honestly suspicious, so I'd be ready to use him as a meat shield and take that weapon for myself if that's what we've got to do. Right now, the killers have the upper hand, and Roy's already lost his wife, so it's time to get out of there before any more family members are next. The first thing he should do is go straight back to the room and get Kevin. In a minute, the kid's about to learn how to hook his tablet up to the Wi-Fi network, allowing him to see through the security camera feeds. This means all they have to do is rewind the footage back to the moment that Lockwood locked down the building, and they'll be able to see the code. As an added bonus, they could also see that Taylor snuck out earlier in the night. Now, if that doesn't work, then plan B is to use a backlight. When he touched the buttons, Lockwood left behind oil and residue that would show up under UV lighting, and we can most likely find one in a supply closet at one of the bars or in the arcade. Then just plug it in near the keypad and use it to see what buttons he pressed, and we're out of here. Otherwise, just try shooting the glass or climbing through one of the windows. Whatever it takes to get out of this hotel from hell while they still can.
Back upstairs, Kevin somehow manages to get on the network using his tablet, and he watches through the cameras as Player 4 crushes the other French guy with a vending machine, making 12 down with 8 more to go. He's officially traumatized for life, but now to make matters worse, Lockwood here FaceTimes in and tells the kid that his mom is in trouble, causing him to drop his tablet and rush out of the room. Meanwhile, these college students are still wondering what happened to the power when they hear some kind of whimsical music coming from down the hall. Looking that way, they see Player 2 and 3 skipping towards them like a couple of clowns. But as they start getting closer, they realize that these two aren't joking around. By the time that the lights come back on, the killers have already got them cornered, and Player 2 puts down the music box before taking a pair of Wolverine claws out from behind his back. Panicking, one of the girls tries to run for it, but 3 shanks her in the stomach with a cram bit, leaving her to bleed out on the floor. Their buddy with the glasses is just standing there stunned until 3 roundhouses him straight in the face, knocking him backwards into the floor. Alexa here takes the moment to try and save her friend, but 3 scares her off, forcing her to run for her life. Turning back to the other guy, they use a mallet to nail both of his hands to the door before tearing his shirt open and using the claw to carve a tic-tac-toe board in his chest, painfully carving out the X's and O's one turn at a time. Running as fast as she can, the survivor happens to find Kevin in the stairwell, but Player 1 cuts off their escape route, forcing them to run back upstairs. She desperately tries knocking on every door they pass, but with the killer steadily closing in, their only choice is to keep running before he catches up. As for the game of tic-tac-toe, Player 2 ends up being the winner, and he slices a big line straight across his chest to declare victory. While 3 skips down the hall to go after whoever's left, her brother drags the victim over to the nearest camera and traces a smiley face on the lens with his blood, making 14 down with 6 more to go.
Okay, and now that's 2 more survivors crossed off the board. Now, I'm sorry, but did these 3 just not hear the announcement about how they're all in a death game? So when you see these 2 Purge rejects casually skipping towards you, don't just stand there doing absolutely nothing until the last possible second. Just like down by the pool, these 3 had plenty of time to start running for their lives, and the more people that stay alive, the better it is for us, because we need as many meat shields as possible to keep the killers busy. Since they were right outside their room, they always had the option of going back in as soon as they noticed the killers were headed their way. From there, they could barricade the door with some furniture and use the choke point to hold them off. The best part is that you don't even have to win the battle, you just have to make it such a pain in the to get to you that the killers decide to move on. While 2 of them were holding the door, the last one could work on their escape plan. Going out the 3rd floor window would be a long way down, but I'd try tying the bed sheets together as a rope to help me get as low to the ground as possible. Even if there's a drop, we should still be able to get low enough to survive the fall, get back to a car, and send help back for everyone else. Now that both of her friends are dead, it looks like Alexa and Kevin here have to fend for themselves. Knocking on doors is a waste of time because most people are either dead already or won't want to help, so instead, I would try pulling the fire alarm. This would get anyone who's still in their rooms out into the hallways and might even get attention from the outside world, but knowing Lockwood, it's a safe bet that he's probably shut the alarms off as well. Either way, the priority here is to find any open room that they can get into, quickly barricade themselves inside, and hopefully survive long enough for the killer to just move on. Now, if they have to fight, they should use any improvised weapons that they can find in the hallway, like a fire extinguisher, luggage cart, or even broken furniture. By using the layout of the building, they can try ambushing player 1 from around the corner, or going up another flight of stairs to gain the high ground. I mean, whatever gives them the best possible advantage in the fight.
Alexa and the kid make it to the elevator, but while she's slamming on the button, player 1 finally corners them in. The woman heroically jumps inside as soon as the door opens, leaving poor Kevin to fend for himself. But the plan backfires when player 3 is already waiting for her, and while she takes Alexa down to the basement, player 1 goes after the kid. On the cameras, Lockwood watches as player 3 torments the girl by making her dance around to the elevator music. Going to his computer, he types out a long-winded message in a chat room where other viewers are gambling on the outcome of the match, saying how there's still a chance that anyone could win, but even he's going to be surprised by how it all turns out. Once they're sure that it's safe to move, Roy and the officer sneak away from the bar to go find his son. On their way out, he finds the man's gun lying on the floor, so he picks it up in case they run into any more trouble. Downstairs, player 3 lets Alexa run into the basement, knowing that there's no good chance for her to escape. But the only door out of there is locked, and she comes walking over thinking that this one's going to be easy, but that's when the girl grabs a serving cart and uses it to knock the killer back, causing her to drop the knife. Alexa lunges for it, but 3 comes back and knees her in the face, pinning her down on top of the cart as she tries to strangle her, until finally at the last second, the girl manages to grab a fork and plunge it straight into her neck. Badly injured, the freak collapses backwards as a huge spurt of blood shoots out from the wound, and that makes 1 player down with 3 more to go. Player 2 happens to walk in on the scene just as Alexa disappears around the corner. She finds an open window, but ends up making too much noise as she's trying to escape, leading the killer straight to her. Luckily, she's able to kick him back and make it all the way through, but this girl's luck is about to run out. With a sigh of relief, she relaxes in the grass, thinking that she's finally safe, but that's when Lockwood shows up and chops her head off with a shovel, making 15 down with 5 more to go.
Okay, damn girl, so close and yet so far. I have to give you some props for being the first one to actually kill a killer though, but doing all that just to die as soon as you get outside is honestly kind of embarrassing. So sorry Alexa, but it looks like you just f***ed up. Now, we already talked about how you and your friends had every opportunity to run back when these 2 first attacked. But when you see 2 clown people skipping your way, and your honest reaction is to start making out in front of them, I honestly can't feel too bad about whatever happens to you next. The thing is, your friends might not have been built for it, but I knew you had what it takes to survive when you used poor little Kevin here as a meat shield. That's an absolutely disrespectful move that not a lot of people would make, but the meat shield technique only works if you don't immediately run into the arms of another threat. Once you got down to the basement, you actually managed to pull off some pretty impressive stuff yet again. Using the objects in your environment to fight her off was a great move. But it all went south when you tried to grab the knife instead of focusing on the threat, or taking the opportunity to escape. This put you in a vulnerable position while player 3 was able to get back on her feet, and almost ended up costing your life. But even then, you proved that you really had that dog in you by taking the crazy lady down with a fork to the neck. And when her brother tried to kill you, you were able to get away. That's how it's done right there, and this would have been a textbook example of exactly what you should do in a situation like this if only you hadn't made one fatal mistake. You let your guard down while you were still on the property, and that turned out to be way too soon. After surviving 3 battles with the killers that almost ended with your death, I personally wouldn't have stopped running until my legs physically gave out. But just when you thought you had it in the bag, Lockwood showed up to remind you that no one is getting out of this hotel alive. Better luck next time, I guess, because Alexa, you f***ed up.
Searching the room for his son, Roy starts getting worried when they realize that he's not in the same room, but when they go back out to the hall, player 4 shows up and cuts them off. He sends Dave crashing into the closet and starts going after the father with the pipe, but his friend manages to grab a clothing iron and bash him over the head. It's barely enough to do any damage, and he ends up paying the price when player 4 launches him into the wall. But while the bodybuilder turns around to pimp slap the soul out of Roy, the officer gets his hands on the blicky and turns him into Swiss cheese, making 2 players down with 2 more to go. While Dad's busy getting his ass kicked, our boy Kevin here is hiding out in the kitchen like that scene with the raptors from Jurassic Park. He's doing a pretty good job until player 1 catches his reflection and absolutely punts the twerp straight into a refrigerator. Just when it looks like it's all over, an alarm goes off, calling all players to deal with a security breach, forcing the killer to spare his life for now. It's the sister and her Frenchy boyfriend, but imagine their surprise when they walk in to find a bunch of dead bodies lying all over the hallway. Before they even know what's going on, player 3 comes running in like a Looney Tunes character and pins them both straight to the wall with an actual spear. The French dude coughs up blood as Taylor passes out, and the freak boy just racked up their first double kill, making 17 down with 3 more to go. Heading back towards the lobby, Roy has to fight for his life when he's suddenly ambushed by player 1. He shouts for Dave to open fire, but that's when the officer reveals that he was rigging the game from the start. And he did all of this just to make sure that he would be the last one out alive. The man leaves Roy for dead and makes his way back to the storage closet where he finds the control room. Logging into his betting account, it shows that he stands to make 31 million V-Bucks when the game ends, and he starts looking around for the code to unlock the others. But while he's watching over the cameras, the father suddenly has a clutch idea. Disarming his opponent, he forces him around a corner where the cameras can't see. After a moment, player 1 steps back into view, and it looks like that's 18 down with 2 more to go, but Dave shouldn't celebrate yet. Just then, Lockwood pulls a jigsaw by revealing that the body in the center of the room was really him all along, and he shanks the man straight in the gut with the dagger of perpetual torment. Furious at him for trying to spoil the game. Grabbing the drill, he reveals that the kid is still alive, meaning Dave here lost either way, before jamming it straight through the side of his head and out his eyeball, making 19 down with just 1 more to go. Getting on the intercom, Lockwood announces that there are only 2 players left, and whoever gets the boy is going to earn triple points. The killers bump into each other in the hallway, but 2 lets player 1 pass without noticing that something about him seems different. At the same time, Taylor suddenly wakes up back in the hall, revealing that her French meat shield actually saved her life. Player 1 goes back into the kitchen, where Lockwood tells him that he's getting warm, and sure enough, he finds the kid hiding in one of the cabinets. But after pulling him to a spot where the cameras cannot see, he takes off the mask, showing that it's actually his father. It turns out that Dad here won the battle and stole player 1's kit to blend in, which means that now there are really 3 players down, with just 1 more to go.
Okay, it looks like it's time for the final showdown. Roy's actually in a pretty good position here since he has the element of surprise and only 2 threats left, but he still needs to be very careful about what they do next. Taylor may still be alive, but right now Roy has no idea that she's in the building, so we can't factor her into our decision. The doors are still locked and his disguise is only going to hold out for so long. With player 2 and Lockwood still roaming the halls, it won't be long before they're in danger again, so we need to use the element of surprise to deal with player 2 first. We saw from their interaction in the hallway that 2 has no idea Roy stole his friend's costume, and we should definitely capitalize on this before he figures it out. The first step is getting Kevin something from here in the kitchen to use as a weapon just in case. Then have him lay down in the middle of the floor somewhere off camera and play dead. When 2 finally gets there, he'll be so surprised and confused by the body that he won't even notice Roy hiding nearby, ready to hit him with a sneak attack. Then all it takes is 1 good hit while his guard is down, and that'll be all 4 players out of the picture. leaving only Lockwood to deal with next. As for the old man, he's going to be a little bit tougher to take by surprise. But there's still a chance, as long as Roy's careful not to reveal his identity too early. If he thinks that the game is over, Lockwood will come out to congratulate player 1 for being the winner. That's when we jump him and either force him to tell us the codes or just take him down so we'll be free to work on our escape plan in peace.
Hearing player 2 coming, Roy tells the kid that he needs to play dead. It's almost about to work, but that's when Lockwood rewinds the cameras and realizes that he has been tricked. The old man sounds the alarm, but Roy uses his kid's own legs to kick player 2 straight across the face. Reaching for some salt, he launches a tactical blast directly into Roy's eyes before cranking him over the side of the head with a rolling pin. Grabbing the knife, Kevin distracts him long enough for his dad to get the upper hand, and he forces player 2 down onto the stove as he turns on the flames, burning him alive. To finish him off, Roy nails the guy with an iron skillet, and that makes all 4 players down with only Lockwood left to go. Rushing to the lobby, the two of them start trying whatever they can to get out of there, but it isn't long before Lockwood shows up to confront them. He's furious at them for ruining the bets, but when he starts insulting Roy's dead family and telling him that they all caught it in 4K, the man decides that it's time to show him what death games are really about. Dodging the first strike, Roy tackles the man to the ground and starts beating his lights out on the floor, destroying him with his bare hands until he finally smashes his head on the tiles. Running over to his son, he gives the kid a big hug and says how much he loves him, when all of a sudden, someone comes rushing into the room and spears him straight through the back. It's Taylor, accidentally mistaking her own father for one of the killers, but by the time she realizes what she's done, it's already too late, and he dies a horrible death, bleeding out on the floor, making 18 down with 2 survivors. Suddenly, the girl tells her brother to hide as Lockwood gets back to his feet, and the two of them start throwing down in an ultimate struggle to the death. Just when he's about to choke her, she knees him in the balls before grabbing the axe and chopping his head clean off. Finally, that makes all 5 players down, but the game is not over yet. While they're getting checked out by the EMTs, a few of them carry player 2 out on a stretcher, looking like he survived after all. As he's walking away, one of them looks at his phone and sees that he's won a bunch of money, showing that he's part of the audience that was betting on the game, and according to the app, a new one is about to begin. Meanwhile, outside of a hospital somewhere in New York, a different Lockwood turns on a camera and announces the start of the next game to an audience that's watching all over the world. It looks like their family trip didn't exactly go as planned, and the games are just getting started, but in the end, they learned what really brings a family together is some good old-fashioned bloodshed.
Stream 2024. Yeah, I like this movie. It has some cool vibes, death game, you know what I mean, cool characters, and I really like the way it was shot. Probably could have used some better editing, but you never know with these things. Anyways, would you have done anything differently? Let me know down in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out that How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this one. I'm the guy. I'll see you in the next video, and have a damn good day.